Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Alex from Part-Time First Sergeant. This video is part 3 of a series where we'll be talking about promotions in the National Guard. In this video, I'll specifically be talking about the ERB sections 1 through 5. Check this out. Your ERB is a replacement for your BioSketch in the National Guard. You might have noticed already that as part of your EPS packet, you're required to validate your ERB. So if you haven't been maintaining your ERB as part of your annual records update, odds are you're going to be behind the 8 ball. But nevertheless, make sure you push forward, you update your ERB as much as you can, because it could take months for your records to be reflected on your ERB. So before you continue watching this video, please go ahead and print a copy of your ERB, grab a highlighter and a pen, and follow along as I cover the sections. So without further ado, there we go. So as you can see here, this is my ERB. We're going to be covering sections 1 through 5, highlighted in green. And sections 6 through 10, plus your state awards, I'll be covering in a separate video. So before we get started on your ERB, let's talk about administrative data up at the top. Your brief date is the date that you generated your ERB. Your name, if you're recently married and you change your name, ensure that your name is correct here and it's correct in every single one of your records going forward. Your data rank is pretty straightforward. Your primary MOS, this only impacts folks that have multiple MOSs. And if you do have multiple MOSs, make sure that your primary MOS is listed on your ERB. And if you came from the active duty component, make sure that this section here says National Guard and not active. That's the difference between a National Guard and the active duty ERB. So let's get started with section 1. As you can see here in section 1 is your deployment and combat duty. Now the part that's important here is not only the number of deployments you've had, but rather the number of months in each deployment. You will notice that the number of months in your deployment will be different from how long you're actually deployed for. But this section on the ERB only covers the months that you were deployed forward. So pre-mobilization does not count as part of your deployment and will not reflect on your ERB. The document that you need to update the section is your DD-214. Going further down on section 1, once again, your primary MOS, and if you do have a secondary MOS, make sure it's listed down here as well. Now let's get into the ASVAB. As you can see here, this is obviously not the date that I enlisted in the military, which means that I retook my ASVAB. Specifically because of my GT score. I initially had a 109 and I wanted to retake it to take advantage of some opportunities that was coming up my way. Now, if you don't have a 110 or higher in the GT score, I strongly advise that you retake your ASVAB. The reason for that is because a lot of ASIs and SQI schools and some MOSs requires for you to have a 110 or higher. Same thing if you decide to go officer or warrant officer, it will require for you to have a 110 or higher. So retake it. Study a little bit, look up ASVAB for dummies, and focus on your GT scores. Some MOSs will look at more than just your GT score, but start there, because with your GT score, you can open up more opportunities for yourself in the future. Now moving on to section 2. Section 2 is your secret clearance. Now, in my state, they're not requiring every soldier to have a secret clearance. Now, some of the items that will trip you up when applying for a secret clearance will be DUIs, financial issues, or any activities in your background that's unfavorable. That will definitely slow you down when trying to get a secret clearance. If you have large debt, that will also trip you up from getting a secret clearance. So then make sure that your background is clean, and if it's not, you're gonna have a tough time. But work through the system, talk to your S2 or whomever is working on getting your secret clearance if you don't already have one. Now make sure that if you do have a secret clearance, that you stay clean on the civilian side in those items that I just listed, because those will definitely help you lose your secret clearance if you don't maintain good standing on the civilian side. DUIs is one of the biggest issues, according to the investigator that processed my secret clearance. She was saying that one of the biggest issues with military service members are DUIs. Moving on to section 3. Section 3 is your service data. Right here, DM stands for your date initially entered military service, PBD stands for pay entry base date, and BESD stands for basic enlisted service date. This right here shouldn't be too much of an issue unless you were prior service officer and you resigned your commission. But the part that's important here is your diems. Your diems is the date used to determine your promotion eligibility when it comes to time in service. It's critically important that that date is accurate, and essentially that it matches up your PBD and your BESD if you just straight up been National Guard your entire career. Now your BASD should be blank if you're an M-Day National Guard soldier, because that is reflecting the date that you've been on active duty continuously. Now moving on to data rank. Data rank should have every block filled with the exception of the ranks that you haven't held yet, and obviously the ranks that you haven't held. This is usually PVT and PV2, where you might have come in with refer a buddy, or you may have come in with a degree and you're automatically enlisted as a specialist. Moving on to section 4. Section 4 is straightforward as far as the board is concerned. The only thing that they can see is what you see here. It's your sex and your race. Other administrative data inside that section that's not the board copy will be your marital status, your country of citizenship, and things like that. Moving on to section 5. Section 5 is foreign language. Foreign language, if you haven't tested for one and you are or you have any level of proficiency in any other language, I strongly encourage you to schedule a date and actually get your language proficiency test done. I haven't tested for language, but fortunate for me, I was offered an opportunity to do an overseas training mission because of my language, even though I haven't tested for the language. Testing for language will open up opportunities in pay, will open up opportunities in future training, depending on your language, obviously. However, regardless of what language you speak, even if it's Spanish, which is a common language, I strongly recommend that you schedule a date with your unit so you can take a language proficiency test. All right, guys, that's it for now. This covers sections 1 through 5. On the next video, I'll be talking about sections 6 through 10. Make sure that as you go through these videos that you print a copy of your ERB, you grab a highlighter and a pen, and you take notes as I go through them in areas that you believe is incorrect. So for now, make sure that you check me out on Twitter at part-time first sergeant with a hashtag drill weekend. And let's continue this conversation. Thank you.